Hello everybody, I am here to present how a Calaquendi board can work with a GHETT-io to allow lights to work on your original pads. Here is my DDR machine here. I am going to quickly overview what the setup is going to look like, and I apologize if there's too much shaky camera. Essentially what I'm going to be using and showing each part is I have a luminar to drive the lights. We'll talk about that more in a second. The GHETT-io and Calaquendi sit in that board right there. I have a laptop that's going to be running OpenITG, but I'm going to use my DDR monitor here because it's tri-sync capable for convenience, and I got the speakers hooked up to it as well. That way we can kind of see it working in a real context and not having to jungle multiple things. This particular luminar here is a spare that I had left over from when we used to sell these things. It was returned unit. Player 1 doesn't work, so I'm going to be using it as player 2 because that does still work. And so you can see how I have my little custom wiring going from that yellow connector there. So that's going to be the light driver. Now, how does it actually work? Let's talk about the GHETT-io. The GHETT-io itself here is just a little board that you would have if you're one of the users. And what I've done is I put some tape on the bottom of it just to make sure that it can't short anything out. I get kind of worried about that kind of stuff. And what I would be providing is these little board cables here. So these are pass-through cables. You can see how they go from this port over to these ports here. Now these ports, I'm calling inputs on these, and the reality is the game cabinet is going from the switches here, through the ground, through these to the GHETT-io. But what I'm doing is I'm going the opposite direction with the 12 volts and the control, this orange and white wire here, to actually drive the neons that are included in your pads that you otherwise would not be messing with. The board itself is pretty straightforward. It has jumpers set for the different modes for the inputs, and the different modes of inputs are all going to be discussed soon. The way lights are controlled is three ways. You can either have an Arduino, in which case this Arduino is not even populated, and I didn't feel like programming one up to work. Or you can have the Schmidt trigger input mode using the 573 lit luminar, whatever board you want for that. And at some point, it'll also have just straight up pack drive outputs. This pack drive circuit was grossly wrong, so I'm respinning the board to come up with a couple other mistakes that I made to get it ready for production. So this is a prototype board. The board itself needs power. So in this particular case, I'm doing myself a favor and just using the cabinet's power input because it has a plug there, and I designed the plug to be compatible with that if you wanted to use it. It has an on-off switch if you want to turn it off. It does have a wall wart, so if you didn't have this cable doing anything, you could use this wall wart, or we could create a pigtail to go from that if it's not going to fit. As you can tell, the board's meant to be about the same size as the original I/O driver, but again, it's a light driver. When it's all put together, it looks kind of messy, but what you want to do for sure is make sure you have a USB going to your GHETT-io. And I should not have unplugged it. So now, the GHETT-io, of course, does not have any indicator LEDs about whether it's working, but now it is plugged in. This board is set and ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my luminar here. The luminar is going to go into standby mode when it just drives all the lights all the time. And to get these lights working, I'm going to turn the machine on. The GHETT-io inside my machine is going to just drive those neons all the time, so they'll be fun to watch. And the luminar now is driving through the Calaquendi board, the actual lights themselves. And this is what the board looks like. And what I want to show is that, see those little white LEDs in there? That's a little test LED that tells you whether the outputs are actually working or not. And then these are just power status LEDs. No big deal. So, right now, the screen doesn't have anything on it because the laptop's outputting 800 by 600. It needs the game to go to 640 by 480, so it fits. When I run that, though, it doesn't take long to start up. Audio and video are now sent to the screen itself, and the luminar is no longer driving the lights. To demonstrate that it's working, though, we're going to go into the test menu and show that these inputs actually do what we want them to do. And I want to show real quick that the input is routed to GHETT-io as the method. And if I press these buttons, they all light up on cue like they're supposed to. And you can see that I have it all routed correctly in the controller system itself. So, there's no real need to demonstrate gameplay in this mode because, well, I can't really do gameplay and hold the phone at the same time. But I wanted to show you that the GHETT-io is working as expected, happily with this machine, and I also have lights responding when I want them to. So thank you for your attention, and look forward to more details about this product.